All right, hello everybody. I've got a fun one today. I love YouTube ads, and I mean that in a like 3% of the time kind of way. I mean, every once in a while I'll get word of like a new video game that's coming out, and one time I even found like a band called Wind Voice that was just like, here is a YouTube ad where we show you one of our songs, and I was like, cool, this looks good, and I'm gonna go pick this up. Every once in a while, you get something good like that. Most of the time, you get garbage that you don't really care about, so you either skip or you're washing dishes, and so you walk away and it just runs, and they think that you're interested in like I don't even know what at some point. Um, so like, but like every once in a while, you also get something that's like really. I mean, angering is probably too harsh of a word, but I just got. But of course, like I watch a lot of videos about writing, and I just recently got the most anti-writing ad placement that I think could possibly exist, and it was for a company called Books by the Foot. And what they are is they're a company that will sell you a collection of books arranged by cover color, or rather spine color, and the amount of like linear feet that those covers of the same color fill. I mean, if you're going to if you're going to judge a bookshelf by the colors of the spines, you might as well just not read at all. uh, I mean, like, I get that there are people who want to like do color coordination, but there's better things to do color coordination than within books. There's really a sense if you get a bunch of books and like goodness knows what you're getting out of these things. They're like some random awful book that someone's like they look at that like, did you read that? Oh no, I don't read any of these. You end up with this horrible catch-22 where it's like, did you read this horrible book? And you're like, yeah. Or you're like, no, I don't read any books at all. These are just here for decoration. And it's like you use books for decoration when like other things I it's a very egotistical thing, and there's this group of people who are like, I read X books a week or X books a month, and that makes me a better person, and blah 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 blah. And reading more you know does have positive effects, but like to put some kind of moral weight on it, I think is really painful. So I don't know, like there's just nothing more abhorrent to me. That's not true. I'm exaggerating for effect, I guess, but like the notion of buying books by the color, choosing books based on the color of their spine or spines, technically, is it's just funny. Why do people do this kind of stuff? Um, yeah, short one today because I spent the whole day editing a podcast episode. So as I've mentioned before, me and my friend Justin Frazier, we do the Wordy Pair podcast. Um, he's written a couple of novels. I've written a bunch of shorter than novels, but something. And we both self-publish. And so we both have a lot of fun and funny opinions about writing and reading. And so, the Wordy Pair podcast is a lot of fun. The episode I was editing today, we basically did a run through, not like a full spoiler review, but like a minor spoiler review of The Sinister Shadow, which is a book that came out in 2015, but the original manuscript was written back in the 1930s. And it was kind of like, it languished in obscurity for a long time. And then finally someone, circa 2015 decided to pull it out from the basement and finish it up and publish it. And what it is something really cool, actually. It is a crossover between The Shadow, the classic pulp superhero, and Doc Savage, the other classic pulp superhero. And they both cross horns and work together near the end. And it is a really, really cool book with a lot of fun action in it, a lot of neat characters, a lot of really cool shadow action, a lot of really cool like real life detective stuff too as well. It's a pretty interesting book. So I just finished that. Now that's going to come out in that episode is going to come out in like 3 or 4 weeks as far as it goes. What's coming out this coming Saturday? I just put it up. Oh, yeah, there's a so one of the things that Justin likes to do is go to bookstores and make humorous observations about stupid things that bookstores are doing. And so the episode that's coming out on Saturday is us talking. We started talking about a bookstore called Books a Million and how they're both better than Barnes and Noble in some ways and worse in others. And then we kind of move off into like book covers and then we have a really good talk um, about Kid Paul Kidby, who was an artist who did art for a lot of the Terry Pratchett books, cover art and internal art for when Pratchett needed art that was part of the book. And I had never really seen much of his art, or at least it had been a very long time since I looked at it, so that I didn't really remember how good he was. But man, Paul Kidby is amazing. And so if you want to hear more about Paul Kidby and how awesome he is, the Wordy Pair that's coming out this Saturday morning will be fun for you. Um, I'll put a link in the description, like when it comes out. So you might have to come back here, or you can always look up the Wordy Pair, spelled just the way it sounds, and check out our latest episode. Final thing is that I uh, I put the Chasm of Color up on Amazon yesterday, and they always say, "Oh, it may take up to 72 hours for us to review this," but actually, they're usually much faster than that. So this is my first attempt at using the Kindle. There's like a Kindle exclusive thing that you can check box on, and I've never used it before, but I'm using it this time just to see what it does as far as page counts. If anything interesting happens from that, I'll let you guys know. And then real quick, what is that book? What is it? It's so they're done reviewing it, so it's live now. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. What kind of book is it? Well, the luminiferous ether as a physicist, this is one of those concepts that I find really, really fascinating. That like people, it's reasonable. Like what exactly allows electromagnetic waves to transfer through space where there doesn't appear to be anything else? And so, back in the day, there was this hypothesis that there was some kind of, imperceptible fluid that filled the space between the planets, and that light could pass through that space by way of creating waves in it, right? And this is a really interesting thing because Maxwell came up with Maxwell's famous Maxwell's equations, and anyway, one of the things that it predicted is that you could actually have electromagnetic waves propagate in empty space with nothing there. And so people were like, well, this is interesting. This is a wave equation that doesn't require a medium. It doesn't have any question of like viscosity. It just has the speed of light in it. And with all of that happening, there was a lot of questions about, well, does this ether actually exist? Can we disprove it somehow? And there were these two guys named Michelson and Morley who did this really amazingly precise experiment for the time. The paper came out in 1887, so the work was done in 1885, 1886, something like that. And they made a big old cylinder of concrete, and they floated it on mercury, and they put mirrors on it to make it interferometer. And they were able to basically rotate this thing, and they were able to take measurements over the course of a full year and observe that there was no velocity changes in light, depending on which direction we were moving relative to the sun. If you're on one side of the sun, you're going that way. If you're on the other side of the sun, you're going that way, relative to an outside observer. And they were like, there doesn't appear to be any actual stuff that is slowing down or speeding up light. This was pre-special relativity too, so it's one of those things where like speed of light is constant. Well, okay, that's weird, but anyway. And so it's a really, really, really groundbreaking experiment, really, really cool thing. I mentioned it in What the Soul Still Fears, but it wasn't really fundamental to the story. What was happening was that there was something that was a different story. But this one, I actually, instead of doing like a modern day scientific thing, I went into historical fiction, so like alternative history. And so the story is about a guy who is a physics professor in Massachusetts, and he reads this paper and it bugs him, and he's like, there just seems like there's something wrong with this, and he tries to figure out the solution to it, and well, that's kind of the start of the story. Later on, he comes up with an idea on how to possibly disprove their hypothesis, or rather disprove their conclusion that because of the way that the Michelson-Morley experiment came out, there is no luminiferous ether, right? And so he's like, well, we can maybe disprove this. And he comes up with a way, builds a machine. There's a little bit of interaction between him and another scientist. It's a fun, it's a short story. It's kind of like a 1 hour read. It's something you can get through in one night. And it starts out with a lot of really fun, cool, old school scientific stuff. I wrote a blog post a couple of days ago about all the different concepts that I had to like double check to make sure that they were actually like contemporaneous with the things that were going on. Because like science history is one of those things that nobody really covers that much. Like we didn't really cover it that much in university, because the history doesn't really matter. What matters are the conclusions and the theories that are working now, right? And so like I had to go back and I had to look at, well, when was the first time people learned how to like grow artificial ruby, for instance. It was called corundum at the time often. And I had to look up a bunch of other stuff too, like when was the first 4-stroke gasoline engine produced? When did people discover and isolate the chemical putrescine? There's a whole list of them over on the blog, but on the blog post from a couple of days ago. But it was a really fun story to write, because I actually had to do some historical research. I even had to do some linguistic research, because I used the word skeletonized in it. Just mild spoiler, but like there does appear some cosmic horror elements later in the story, and I like put the word skeletonized in there. I'm like, well, that word sounds like it was written. It was created like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it's like super modern sounding word. And I looked it up, and actually the word, in the sense of like a corpse that has been reduced to a skeleton, actually dates back to 1644. So that was like a big surprise to me. But it means that the word existed and someone could use it in 1889. So it's in the story. Yeah, it was a fun book to write. I don't know. Like I didn't plan it to be as long as it was. Like the first draft I think was 8,000 or 9,000 words, something like that, and it's kind of blossomed up to 15,000 as I added more things to it and put more ideas in and stuff. I added a couple of like literary callbacks in it, which I think are always fun to do. And so yeah, it was just a really fun story. I spent a lot of time polishing it, because like I don't know. You learn something by taking your time and editing and re-editing and redrafting a work, way more than just plopping out the first thing that comes to your mind and maybe going over it once to look for like spelling errors and incorrect words and stuff like that. So it was a fun story to write, and it's a short read. It's pretty fun, and yeah, that's basically the update for today. Don't buy your books by the foot. Buy books because they are interesting and they're books that you love, and if you buy enough, someday you might choose to arrange them by color coordination, but I find that arranging by author is usually more efficient. Because books are meant to be read. They're not meant to, they're not meant to sit on a shelf and look pretty. And, actually, fun time. Here, let's do this real quick. So this is my collection of like some first editions, some like first readers editions, usually the same year that the book was published. This is a good chunk of my Nero Wolfe collection. There's also these down here, where you can see up to about here we've got some Nero Wolfe stuff. I have it arranged by date, basically, and you'll see that I have some repeats as well, because basically what happened was I got really into Nero Wolfe, and my dad started buying me started buying me first editions when he found them for like Christmas presents and stuff. And like I didn't keep good track of what he had bought and what he hadn't, so he would sometimes pick something up because he'd see it on a shelf somewhere. He'd be like, "Oh, this is Nero Wolfe first edition. I better pick this up." And so I do have some repeats, but that's all right. They're really good books. I probably read I usually read the paperbacks because they're a little bit more disposable, but I will every once in a while come over here and pick up one of the ones I don't have in paperback and read that. I'd say I probably read about one Nero Wolfe book per week on average. They're fantastic books, and I highly recommend them to anybody who even has like a twinge of affinity for the murder mystery genre. They're a lot more approachable and like realistic and like solvable by the reader than like Sherlock Holmes, and they're a lot more fun than like Agatha Christie. So just a great series of novels. So that's all I've got for today. It is Thursday evening, I guess, and so yeah. I had to find the green dot. Yeah. Happy Thursday night. This is my update for today, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you want to help the channel grow, you know what to do. If you really want to help the channel grow, you can go check out my blog and see if any of the books that I'm selling sound like they might be up your alley. Mostly science fiction, with a little bit of pulp action here and there. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening, and have a good Thursday night and maybe Friday. See ya.